Yeah, I'm not so sure that when the off season started, that James Shields was exactly on the Padres' radar, and that didn't mean that they didn't have interest in him. Their most glaring needs, of course, were shoring up their woeful offense from 2014, and I think we've seen how A.J. Preller went about addressing those needs. Went through a series of trades in December, acquiring Justin Upton, Matt Kemp, Will Myers, Derek Norris, and a handful of other players. But as I think as we got into January and into February, kind of looking at their rotation and maybe kind of deciding that, it'd be nice to have a little bit more starting depth. You never finish the season with the same 5 pitchers you start with. It's just the way that the year goes. A lot of ups and downs, injuries, underperformance, etc. So, and James Shields was still out there on the market as we got to February here, and maybe they circled back and started some negotiations with Shields' representation, and lo and behold, found some common ground. And now Shields makes his home in the San Diego area. Maybe that helps some. Shields, of course, looking for a home. That certainly helped. We're less than 2 weeks until the start of spring training. So I think it was a pretty good fit, especially for the Padres, who had a pretty good rotation to begin with already. I think that even if it's anything, even if it's something where, they look at a guy with his extreme work ethic and the way that he takes care of himself and the way he goes about preparing between starts, and something like 8 of the last seasons, he's topped 200 innings, and you just don't see guys doing that as much anymore. Oh, let's not forget, this sort of used to be the norm back in the 70s and 80s, and now that we've entered an era now where pitchers are coddled a little bit more, and relief specialization, the game has changed a little bit. So I think in that sense that James Shields is a little bit of a throwback. But I tell you what, for a manager, there's some extreme comfort there, and especially for a manager like Bud Black, a former pitcher himself, he's always talked about 200 innings kind of being the high standard, even in today's era for a starting pitcher. So I think there's something that other pitchers can kind of look at this guy and not necessarily emulate. I mean, the body can only do what the body can do, but I think they could see that how this guy goes about preparing himself, not just physically, but maybe studying hitters. There's a track record there, a proven track record, and especially for guys who haven't been around as long. I look at a guy like Andrew Castor, and maybe more appropriately, a guy like Tyson Ross, who's just starting to scratch the surface of his potential, making his first All-Star team last year. I think there's a lot of things they could pick up by watching James Shields.